Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. In this edition, our team has been on a fact-finding mission across the key areas that could well decide the outcome of the US presidential election. The swing states, two in particular, Minnesota and Wisconsin. Two states with, I think it's fair to say, a Democratic tradition. But how they go this time round could really dictate who is the next occupant of the White House. Jessica Masurier is our reporter. Jessica, great to see you. I'm looking forward to this report. Who are the voters that you think will have the biggest impact in these swing states?
So we decided to focus in this documentary on the voters whose votes will count the most in these swing states. We went to Minnesota and we went to Minneapolis and spoke to black voters. In the last election, many of them abstained, and that had an impact. That's why Minnesota almost ended up going to the Republicans. We also spoke to miners in the Iron Range. Historically, they have voted Democrat, but in the last election, many of them voted for Trump. And we went to find out if they intend to do the same this time round. Then we went to Wisconsin as well, which flipped by surprise to Trump in the last election, largely due to the fact that farmers voted for him. But since then, there has been a trade war with China, and that has really impacted the fortunes of farmers in this country. So we went to find out if they will still be voting for Trump. We also went to speak to loggers in Wisconsin because Trump has been trying really hard to court them. And we discovered, as you'll see in the opening images of our documentary, what is important to them. They really treasure the Second Amendment, their right to bear arms.
Let's get to the meat of the matter straight away, Jess. Thank you very much indeed. And let's watch this film by Jessica Masurier and Céline Bruneau.
Actually, I'm going to step a little bit because it's going to eject bullets like this. If you want to talk about civil war, I think that's what you need to do, is say we're coming for your firearms. I believe that Joe Biden has said all you really need is a shotgun. I want more than a shotgun.
I think Trump is surprised that there is even farmers out here. He doesn't even smell us. He doesn't see us. The only reason he knows we exist is because farmers, as a rule, vote for him.
The vast majority of the guys that I work for and guys I know from other mines are pro-Trump. He's for the working people, even though he is a billionaire.
Our fathers, our grandfathers, were all Democrats, and it's tough watching a lot of people in northern Minnesota turn towards supporting President Donald Trump.
I regretted voting for Trump starting on the first day of the inauguration when he lied about how many people were there.
I'm very excited about voting, okay? So I not only have a right to vote, but it is a pleasure and a privilege to vote.
Rosinia, Laurie, Junior and John, their votes are amongst those that could change the face of America. They live in Wisconsin and Minnesota, two states that voted solidly Democrat before Donald Trump arrived on the political scene. In 2016, Trump's promises seduced voters here. He became the first Republican to win Wisconsin in 36 years. He lost Minnesota by just 45,000 votes. Trump has campaigned hard in Minnesota's Iron Range. Third-generation miner Junior Colterman has been working heavy machinery for 25 years. He voted for Trump in 2016.
Yeah, years ago this whole area was all Democratic, and as a matter of fact, I voted all Democrat years ago too. And they say they're for the working people, but if they keep pushing a radical environmental agenda, it's going to put us right out of business on the Iron Range.
What is it?
Go! Go!
What is it? Lily.
I like that he wasn't a politician. He is a businessman, and it was time for a change in this country. We went to the Trump rally on last Wednesday, and it was one of the most amazing experiences in my life. I never in a million years thought I'd get to see a United States president, let alone one of the ones that I really admire. And it was the highlight of my son's life.
The economy of Eveleth in northern Minnesota has always been tied to iron ore mining, but as mines closed, it became a ghost town. John Arbogast is president of a mining union. He's watched the decline of his industry due to low foreign steel prices, automation and outsourcing.
How anyone could support President Trump when he's attacked our way of life for the last 3.5 years is beyond me. He's a friend of the corporations. He's a friend of his rich friends. He's not a friend of the working men and women, that's for sure. He hasn't done a damn thing. We're not doing good up here.
Hibbing Taconite is one of Minnesota's last functioning mines.
And that's the only jobs we have here on the Iron Range, so what are you supposed to do? I mean, you can't live off working in the tourism industry, trying to feed a family of 4 off $8 an hour. It's hard when you have those little babies looking at you and you got to figure out how am I going to feed them and clothe them and, you know, send them to college when my mine is closed. It's heartbreaking.
Trump has not only courted the working class but also rural voters in Wisconsin. The state's forests are one of its biggest natural resources. 41-year-old Jeremy Miller runs his own logging business. He often works over 60 hours a week.
It's not an easy job. If you don't absolutely love it, you can make way more money doing something else. It's so peaceful out here. It's beautiful. And I guess it comes down to I just love it.
One of his favorite things about the forest, flying squirrels.
Usually it's up a little bit higher. All of a sudden they'll just, like, you bump it or another tree hits it or something, and yeah, they just come gliding out. Yeah.
Like many others living in rural Wisconsin, Jeremy cherishes his personal liberty.
I don't expect anything. I don't want free handouts. I don't want free health care. I don't need any of that. I just want to be left to pave my own way.
Jeremy believes that Donald Trump will protect his livelihood, which he sees as under threat.
Democrats tend to be more restrictive. There's a couple of things that restrict us, is putting animals on endangered species lists, whether it's the spotted owl or whatever it is. But I feel you can do that without putting so many hard and fast restrictions on things, without saying we can't be loggers anymore.
Farming is another big industry in Wisconsin. The state is known as America's Dairyland. It's home to more than 7,000 dairy farms. Lynn Hicks has just finished milking her cows and is sending them out to pasture. She says they enjoy listening to the radio while being milked. Lynn works long hours tending to her animals, along with her husband and 3 children. They know the cows by name.
Honey McBuddy, what are you doing?
Honey. His name is Vivian. Okay. And this one's Ophelia.
A year and a half ago, Lynn's farm became one of the many in the region that had to declare bankruptcy, partly due to Trump's trade war with China, which led to milk prices plummeting.
A lot of tears were shed on it because it felt like I had failed.
The Hicks continue to support President Trump.
I think in the long term that if he does get another term, we're going to realize that the things that he was doing were actually the right things to do.
In a region where most farmers support Trump, John Rosenholm is an outlier. This 5th-generation farmer lost $400,000 due to the drop in milk prices. Now, Trump is giving farmers stimulus checks.
It's kind of funny because they're always saying they're anti-socialist and they're always anti-this and anti-communist and don't want the government to do all this stuff. But anytime we have a Republican president, we get in an economic bind, and then they start shoveling money out, borrowing money like mad. And none of us know how the heck we're ever going to pay that back. We find it kind of ironic. Vote November 3rd, Biden-Harris.
John's farm is lined with political signs, handmade by his wife, Nettie.
You're talking to people who live up in northern Wisconsin, and one lady says, I have people with AR-15s shooting off their guns next door. I'm afraid to put my sign out by my mailbox. And I'm like, this is the United States of America. What are you talking about? This is how I get away from it. That's Madeline. Want some cats?
Minneapolis, the capital of Minnesota, seems a world away. The priority here is getting tested for coronavirus. African Americans have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic.
So please come out, register, and at that same time, get you a COVID screening.
You can also register to vote here. 4 years ago, many black voters abstained. This year, with such a tight race, their votes will be crucial. The issue on people's minds here in Minneapolis is systemic racism, following the police killing of George Floyd at this crossroads earlier this year. This memorial is called the Say Their Names Cemetery, an installation inscribed with the names of African Americans killed by police. Pastor Rosinia Fuller is making it her personal mission to encourage African Americans to vote.
The graveyard right behind me that has George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, they don't have a vote. So we have to be their voice. We have to be their vote to say enough is enough. We're fighting for our very lives in this election. We have a president who has put full display of white supremacy. And so our voice counts. And I know that some of us are very sad. Some of us have given up, but this is not the time for giving up.
The civil rights protests in urban centres are unsettling for some Trump supporters, including logger Jeremy Miller and his friend Dave.
There's a reason you don't see rioting like Minneapolis in a small town like here.
Why?
Because we're all armed.
Right.
Everybody here's got a gun. Somebody tries to break into anybody's house or they start any crap, they're going to be met by guns. There's a lot of people that are ready for war. If Joe Biden wins, that's because somebody cheated.
Fear of the other, a sentiment that Laurie McCammon has also felt in the past. Before moving to a Wisconsin town where the Mississippi River runs along the border with Minnesota, this 65-year-old grandmother lived in California. Frightened by illegal immigration in 2016, Laurie voted for Trump.
Last summer, my daughter and grandson came to visit, and we went to Winona. Yeah. So I have all these up here, so I'm waiting. They're coming for Christmas, all three of them. Trump had us believing that he had a plan that Mexico would pay for the wall. And that is the only reason I voted for him. And I have to say, I didn't feel good about it, and I regretted it when I saw the children in the cages. I'm a mom, and I'm a grandma. To take children away from their parents, some of these were breastfeeding babies taken away from their mothers. Some of these children will never be united with their parents because we don't know where their parents are. That is beyond cruel.
Laurie is a member of Republicans Against Trump, a group of disillusioned voters who've switched their allegiance to the Democrats. Back in Minneapolis, Rosinia exercises her democratic right. In this battleground state, every vote counts.
Ain't gonna let old Trump turn me around. I'm gonna keep on a-walking, keep on a-talking, marching up to freedom's land.
Our reporter Jessica Masurier is still with us. Jess, thank you for that insight into the United States. Tell us more about what matters to the people in America's heartland.
On the whole, people just want to be able to feed their kids, to support their families, have good jobs, work hard. All of them told us about how many hours they work a week, especially the farmers and the miners, the loggers, and also to be free. Their personal liberty is very important to them, and for many of them, socialism is a dirty word. So what we saw is quite how divided the country is in these two states. This was really apparent. And there was one moment when we were walking on the border between these two states along the Mississippi River with one of our characters, Laurie, and her friend Frank Zappa was there with her. Now, she is a Republican who has turned against Trump. She's now disgusted by him. And her friend wants to vote for Trump. But he told me that even within his own family, the divisions that we're seeing in this country are very apparent. Take a look.
I have a 39-year-old daughter who said that if I vote for Trump, she's never going to talk to me again the rest of my life. And elections should never be that way. I think adults should be able to vote who they want to vote for, and you know, the day after voting, we find out who won the election, and we kind of join forces and try to make things better.
And Jessica, any sense of who will win these states?
Well, all the polls suggest that Biden will win both, but that was not necessarily the impression we got on the ground. Trump does still have a lot of support, and it seems that the people who love Trump the most, that there is nothing that he could do that would make them vote against him. So that was very interesting. But it really will depend on whether or not African Americans do go out and vote. It seemed that they are going to vote. A lot of them, like our character Rosinia, were voting early in this election.
Jessica, thank you very much indeed. You can see Jessica and Céline's report again, of course, via our website, france24.com. This is Reporters on France 24. Do stay with us, but most of all, do stay safe.